perhaps one that is certainly still unsolved as far as we're concerned, and very intriguing, is the Barbados Coffin mystery. We went over to Barbados a year or two back. We were lucky to manage to inveigle a little commission out of the Beam to go and make the programme about the Barbados Coffins. The basis of the story is this. In 1807, a mysterious vault, which is about, seen from the outside, it's almost exactly the size of our screen. There's a flight of steps, so if you can imagine that ground level is roughly where the tables are, or your eye level. That's what you would see as you walk through the churchyard. Coming down here is a flight of steps leading to the actual doorway of the vault, which is arch on the inside, but is dead flat when you look at it from the outside. And this flight of steps was originally sealed by a big, this will appeal to us all, of course, we're in Plymouth, Devonshire marble, the best, the most solid and the most heavy, and the really impenetrable stuff. So this huge slab of blue Devonshire marble seals the entry to the vaults. And unless your buddy on the other end is Schwartzy, you will not lift that very quickly on your own. It normally takes 4 guys, one on each corner, to haul it up, carry it to one side, and the coffin goes down the steps. Now, the story begins in 1807. This vault passed into the keeping of the Chase Elliott family, and the first of the family died and was buried in there in 1807. Nothing particularly strange happened. It all seemed normal. Another member of the family dies, and to everybody's disgust and surprise, the first coffin had been moved. A few years go fast, somebody else dies, third coffin is put down, big blue Devonshire slab is picked up, and the other 2 coffins have moved. This went on until 1819, the period of some 12 years, 13 years. Every time a Chase Elliott died, the other coffins had been moved. Now, these are not little 2 guys front bank coffins. These are Barbadian rich man's planter coffins, and they were encased in lead because of the climate. And if you didn't put something very substantial on them, they wouldn't last more than a matter of a few months in the heat and with the jolly little microorganisms and bugs that got to work. So everybody who was anybody was encased in lead. That brought the typical coffin weight up to down nearly a ton. So let us imagine that we were planning a practical joke, ruse or prank, and we said, hey, let's go down and throw the Chase Elliott coffins about. Nothing much else on tonight. I said, no, not really, let go through the coffin. It would take at least 8 of us. It would need, because these things are not just shifty, they were found leaning against the wall. And this is the equivalent of 8 of us going outside, picking up that car which is blocking the paddock, and propping it against the hotel door with its nose in the air. It would require a fair number of fairly burly Devon lads to do that. And this rather militated against the idea of a hoax, because you know how it is. No matter how much you've sworn each other to secrecy, somebody will have had a little drop too many one night and will say, hey, you know that mystery of those coffins? I tell you, it was me and Fred and Big Jang and Billy was with us. And they lost so much. That's great. And so, if you've got at least 8 men in on the secret, that secret is not going to be a secret much longer. There's an inverse correlation between the number of people who know about it and the security of the secret itself. So, on the fatal year of 1819, yet another Chase Elliott dies and is interred. And on this occasion, Lord Combermere, the governor, takes a hand. We need to investigate a little bit of the character of Lord Combermere, Governor of Barbados, in 1819. He had fought alongside Wellington in the Peninsular War.
He had been a cavalry commander. Whatever else he was not a whip. And neither was he particularly patient. Cavalry commanders, I believe, are not noted for their patience and tranquility. So our good buddy Lord Combermere, who was now in charge, grabs the local figure, one Thomas Alderson, Doctor of Divinity, and says, Brother Alderson, when we've laid this jack to rest, I want to put sand on the floor. I want to test the vault. I have a stonemason with me who'll do it. And I then want to seal it. When you put the slab back, we'll cement it in place. And furthermore, I will ask half a dozen of you good friends who are with me to make a mark or put your signet ring in the wet cement. And behold, they did. So we've now got a vault 8 foot by 12, down 14 steps, roughly this size. And that vault has got a sanded floor. Its coral stone block walls have all been checked. And there is no way that a mouse could get in there. And of course, that Chase Elliott family was singularly inconsiderate and uncooperative. Nobody died. No. And so his lordship, the governor, says, "Oh, you're all right. They've been there for 3 months. Anything was going to happen, it would have happened. Right, Father Alderson, poor old Alderson, trotting along behind the governor. Yes, Lord Combermere, no, Lord Combermere, 3 bags full of Lord Combermere. And he said, well, we could open it if you wish. I do wish. Get your men over here." And they checked the seals, which were intact. 4 burly lads lifted up the blue Devonshire marble slab. They didn't have to go down because one of the coffins was 3/4 of the way up. Combermere gave the order, "Get out! I want separate graves for the lot." And that's where they rest today. And Combermere gave the order in 1819 that the vault was to remain open. Nobody was ever to be buried in it again. That the old nobody was. Well, when we went there, with the enthusiastic support of the Barbadian Tourist Board, they lent us a marvellous guy to look after us. He had won the title of Taxi Driver of the Year and Tourist's Best Friend the year before. Lovely guy, called Mavis Clark, big fella, a Barbadian, and took us everywhere, showed us everything, got us to the museum, found all the archives, enabled us to check up on ancient newspaper records. We really got our teeth into the research. And finally, it was a radio commission we got. I'm down in the vault, and Emerson is sort of standing on the top, peeping down the steps. And it suddenly occurred to me, he got a lovely, rich, baritone noise. Like, well, this will sound superb on the broadcast. And Emerson, would you just come down and have a little word with me about it so I can get your voice on the tape? See, it'll sound great. Eyes open very wide. I'm not going down in there and get this guy is 6 foot plus and could be a rugby prop forward. I'm not going down there. Not after what my grandmother told me. And then he did a double take. He looked at this Englishman who was nearly a foot shorter than he was. If you're there, I'll come. Emerson, that's the nicest compliment I've ever had. Call now. So we've ended a piece with him telling me some of the things that his grandmother had told him about all the horrors of the evil spirits in the vault. And the other thing my director back at BBC had told me to do, see if you can get hold of either a voodoo priest or priestess or an obeah, which is a slightly diluted form of voodoo, or an obeah priest or priestess, and ask them what precautions they would take if entering the vault. Line at a time. I mean, terrible job. You know, when you read fiction about Barbados or Haiti, you sort of knock on the nearest door and a voodoo man jumps out. But when you try to find one with a microphone in one hand, they disappear. They're like snow on a hot day. But they finally ran one rather reluctant obeah man to earth and said, no, you know, BBC England, and we're doing a programme about this mysterious vault and so on, and I understand that you're an expert in things mysterious and mystical religions, etc., 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 and my director has particularly asked me to ask you what precautions or what should one do or not do in the mystical presence of whatever is in this vault. Looks at me and says, one thing, brothers, one thing. Never, under any circumstances, take anything out of the vault. Nothing. I had in my jeans pockets and I'd love a rock off the or of the vault, which is now in our china cabinet and has been there for some time. So with this thing burning a hole metaphorically in the pocket of my jeans, he smiled and nodded, never told him again. He was telling me horror stories about it. All there was this investigator who came over and he took a stone from the vault. Smile, oh yes, didn't he? And he said he took the stone from the vault, and within weeks he was innovating as he wrote to a newspaper here, he wrote to the local government, and he said, please, please, I must get rid of it. It's caused me, this has gone wrong, that's gone wrong, everything's gone wrong. And he sent it back by registered express airmail. The editor of the local paper trundled down the steps of the vault back to its original site. So the one in my pocket wasn't jumping in those ones. Neither did I develop blisters on my knee. Anyway, the next day was even stranger than the research and the adventures that we'd had. We've got a pal called Simon Probert, who is a funeral director, and of course, being in the church, you get funeral director pals who ask you to come to help out with the families they're looking after. So if we wrote down a list of our circle of immediate friends in Cardiff, about 8 of them would be funeral directors. And Simon was one such. And again, it's a profession in which you tend to become, what should we say, very resilient and durable, although he's a lovely, sympathetic bloke and gently sincere. Undertakers usually have wonderful senses of humour and have to escape when they've done their professional work. And Simon was, as I said, an ideal pal and great mate of ours, and he said he went to Barbados to a friend's wedding, and his partner Pam, this very psychic lady, and when they got to the vault, which is at Oistins, Christ Church in Barbados, he wanted to go down and have a look. Because there it stands, you walk into it like you walk into a hotel foyer, you're a vault, there's no restriction, it's just there, it's available, one of the tourist attractions of Barbados. And suddenly Pam, who was the psychic lady, said, I'm not going down there, son. I'm getting the most awful negative vibes out of that place. I'm just not going down. So I said, okay, fine, you don't want to, on you go. So he handed Pam the camera. It had 36 exposures thereon, and they'd taken some already, they took some others later, and 1 out of 36 failed to come out. So if you can imagine, here are the steps, as I was suggesting, of the vault there. Simon goes down the steps till he's sort of head and shoulders visible at ground level. Pan is there with the camera, and he does, as we all are tempted to do on holiday, one of those little hello, have a nice day, sort of, wish you were here sort of moves. And he's standing with his hand up to the camera, and that sort of inane grin that we do when somebody's taking a picture of us on a beach. And that was the only one that never came out. He has a friend who, like many of my pals here, was a computer specialist. And he said, I'll enhance it for you, Simon. And he did all sorts of weird things with his enhancement program. And Simon brought us the picture. Where he should have been, there was a cloud of what can only be described as Victorian-style ectoplasm. And a grinning skull with the ectoplasm sweeping back from it like clouds on a summer day. And he said, what do you make of that? He said, it terrified my computer friend. He wouldn't do it again. He just did that one. And maybe Simon, I don't want to see any more of that. On all the weird stuff we've looked at over the last 40-odd years, that picture from World's Greatest Unsolved Mysteries is, I think, the
singular, most amazing thing that we've ever seen.
I do not know. Okay, we can say trick of the light, trick of the computer enhancement process. But I know Simon is totally genuine. I know that the account he gave me of standing on the steps and grinning as the camera is perfectly genuine. And that's what came out. And the other 35 were perfectly normal. Some were taken before, some were taken after. It wasn't as if it was the very first exposure or the very last one. It was just darned odd, and I can explain it in no other way. Pads and I, who are normally very dependent upon the presence of somebody who is a sensitive psychic, felt nothing. In fact, when we were down there, we said to the chum, I was seeing Welsh woodsheds that are more brightening with this, and it was just like standing in a Breton cellar.